The painting stared back at them. Rex's bark tore through the abandoned Burlington police station, primal, desperate. Unlike anything Ethan Cole had heard in 5 years of partnership, the German Shepherd clawed at the wall beneath the crooked oil painting, nails scraping wood until blood smeared the baseboard. Rex, heel. Ethan's command died in the suffocating darkness. The dog wouldn't stop, couldn't stop. Hands trembling. Ethan lifted the frame. Behind it, a hollow space thick with 40 years of dust. Inside, a wooden box. 7 Polaroids spilled across his palm, children's faces, eyes wide with terror. A note in shaking handwriting. They never left. His flashlight caught the 3rd photograph. The breath left his lungs. 3 years old, blonde curls, his mother's blue eyes staring back at him. That was him. Rex collapsed, convulsing. White foam bubbled from his mouth. Ethan's scream shattered the silence as his world tilted into nightmare. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now, let's continue with the story. The word count, 500. The fluorescent lights of Burlington Animal Hospital burned Ethan's eyes at 3 in the morning. Rex lay motionless on the steel table, tubes running from his legs, chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. Helen Martinez worked in focused silence, her weathered hands moving with precision. "Strychnine poisoning," she said without looking up. "The dose should have killed him in minutes. I don't understand how he's still breathing." Ethan gripped the wooden box tighter, knuckles white. His mind spiraled back 6 months to another fluorescent-lit room, the basement of St. Michael's Church, where folding chairs formed a circle and coffee burned in a pot older than his career. "I'm Ethan, sober 8 months, relapsed twice." The words had tasted like failure. He'd stood there, 34 years old, watching his reflection in the window hollow-eyed, 20 pounds too thin, wearing his father's shame like a second skin. The divorce papers sat unsigned in his truck. Jennifer had packed her things 3 weeks prior, her final words still echoing, "I won't bring a child into your chaos." The chaos had a name, Richard Cole. His father's legacy poisoned everything. In 1985, Richard Cole had been Burlington's golden boy, the detective who'd solved the unsolvable. Then 7 children vanished over 6 months. The press called it Vermont's darkest hour. Richard led the investigation with fierce determination until Margaret Cole, Ethan's mother, died in a car accident that March. 2 weeks later, Richard closed the case. No arrests, no explanations, no bodies found. The Burlington Herald crucified him. Coward cop closes case. Yet for 20 years, until his death in 2005, Richard Cole never defended himself, never spoke of those missing children, never explained why he'd given up. Ethan grew up beneath that shadow. Kids at school sang cruel rhymes. Teachers whispered. By 14, when his father's heart gave out, Ethan had already learned to hate the name Cole. Yet here he stood, Officer Ethan Cole, wearing the same badge his father had disgraced. Rex had been his last chance. The K-9 program assigned him the German Shepherd 8 months ago, the son of Max, his father's legendary partner who died in service in 20. Ethan had wanted to refuse. The connection to Richard felt like another weight he couldn't carry, but Rex had looked at him with those knowing amber eyes, and something shifted. The dog refused every other handler, sitting motionless until Ethan approached. Their first night together, Ethan broke down, bourbon bottle in hand, ready to surrender everything. Rex had simply laid his head on Ethan's lap and waited. "He's stabilizing," Doc Martinez said, interrupting the memory. "Whatever he found in that building, he fought to survive it." Ethan opened the box again, studied the photograph of himself at 3 years old, behind him, in the faded Polaroid. Barely visible, a man's hand on his shoulder. His father's wedding ring caught the light. "What were you hiding, Dad?" Ethan whispered. Word count 900 dawn broke over Burlington as Rex opened his eyes. The German shepherd's tail managed a weak thump against the examination table. Ethan's chest loosened for the first time in hours. "It's a miracle," Dr. Martinez said, checking Rex's vitals. "The dose in his system should have killed him within minutes. I've never seen anything like this." She handed Ethan the toxicology report, strychnine, rat poison. But here's what's strange. This particular compound was banned in 1988. Whoever poisoned him used something old, very old. Ethan studied the papers, his detective's mind already working. Someone didn't want them finding that box. Someone who had access to poison from decades ago. Someone who knew what was hidden behind that painting. Rex struggled to his feet, unsteady but determined. He pressed his nose into Ethan's palm, a gesture of reassurance that made Ethan's throat tighten. "We're not done yet, are we, boy?" Ethan whispered. By 8 o'clock Sunday morning, Ethan stood in Police Chief William Harrison's office. The chief was 58, a fixture at Burlington PD for 15 years. His walls displayed commendations, photographs with governors and senators, evidence of a distinguished career. Harrison barely glanced up when Ethan entered. "Cole, you're supposed to be off today." "Sir, I need to report what we found last night." Ethan placed the Polaroids on the desk. Harrison's reaction was immediate and wrong. His face drained of color. His hand trembled, reaching for the photographs. For 5 seconds, he stared at them without speaking, and Ethan watched something like recognition or fear flash across his superior's features. "Where did you get these?" Harrison's voice had gone hoarse. "Behind a painting in the old station. There's a note. They never left. Sir, these are connected to the 1985 cases. The children who—" "Leave it alone," Harrison cut him off, shoving the photos back across the desk. "That building's been condemned for years, probably just trash left by squatters." "Sir, one of these children is me." The words hung in the air. Harrison stood abruptly, turning toward the window. "That's exactly why you need to walk away. Cole, you're too close to this. Your judgment is compromised. My father led that investigation. Your father closed that investigation." Harrison snapped. "And there was good reason. Some cases don't have answers. Some doors stay closed for everyone's protection." Ethan felt heat rising in his chest. "With all due respect, sir," 7 children vanished. "I'm placing you on administrative leave effective immediately." Harrison's tone left no room for argument. "Turn in your badge and service weapon. You have 48 hours before this becomes an official suspension." The dismissal felt like a physical blow. "You can't be serious." "I'm dead serious. Cole, this obsession with your father's failures has already cost you your marriage. Don't let it cost you your career." Harrison's eyes were hard now, all traces of his earlier fear buried beneath authority. Whatever you think you found, let it go. Ethan placed his badge and gun on the desk with deliberate care. Each item felt heavier than it should. Walking out of that office, he understood with crystalline clarity that something was deeply wrong. Harrison wasn't just dismissive, he was scared. The parking lot was nearly empty when Patricia Sullivan intercepted him. Pat was 45, a detective with 20 years on the force and a reputation for integrity that even the old-timers respected. She'd kept her distance from Ethan over the years, and he'd always wondered why. "Ethan, wait." He turned, exhausted and angry. "Not a great time, detective? Your father was no coward." Pat spoke quickly, glancing toward the building. "I need you to know that I worked with Richard in 1985. I was just a rookie, but I saw what happened." Something in her urgency made Ethan stop. "What did you see?" He changed after Margaret died, started working double shifts, stopped sharing information with the team. He was hiding something, but not because he was corrupt or incompetent. Pat moved closer, lowering her voice. "One night I found him in his patrol car, crying so hard he didn't hear me approach. I asked if he was okay. He looked at me and said, 'I'm saving them the only way I can.'" "Saving who?" "I never found out. The case closed 2 weeks later, but Richard gave me something before he died." Pat pulled a small key from her jacket pocket. It was old brass, tarnished with age. Engraved on its head was a single number 213. "What does it open?" "I don't know. He gave it to me in 2005, said if anyone ever asked about 85, I should give them this." She pressed it into Ethan's palm. "You're asking. That means it's time." Ethan stared at the key, feeling its weight. 40 years of secrets condensed into cold metal. "Harrison suspended me," he said quietly. "Then investigate on your own time." Pat's expression was fierce. "Rex almost died protecting whatever truth is buried here. You owe him that much." Ethan closed his fist around the key. "Will you help me?" Pat nodded once. "Your father saved my life during a domestic call in '86. I've owed the Cole family a debt for a long time." As she walked away, Ethan looked down at Rex, who'd been sitting patiently throughout the conversation. "Looks like we're not done yet," Ethan said. Rex's tail wagged. Stronger now. They had 48 hours and a key to nowhere, but it was more than they'd had yesterday. Word, count 100 Oak Hill Cemetery hadn't changed in 20 years. The same iron gates, the same weathered stones leaning like tired soldiers. Ethan hadn't been here since the funeral where he'd stood dry-eyed at 14 while 3 people showed up to mourn Richard Cole. Rex walked beside him now, still weak but insistent. The German shepherd seemed to understand where they were going. Richard's grave sat in the far corner, beneath an oak tree that had grown wild. Weeds choked the headstone. Moss crept across the engraved letters. Nobody had visited. Nobody had cared. Richard Cole, 1955, 2005. Father, officer. 6 words to summarize a life. 6 words that had haunted Ethan for 2 decades. His knees hit the damp earth before he realized he was falling. The wooden box slipped from his hands. 20 years of hatred, of shame, of carrying a name that meant failure, it all crashed down at once. I'm sorry. The words scraped out of him. God, Dad, I'm so sorry. He'd never called him that, not since he was 8, after Mom died. Richard became a stranger after the case closed. Richard became the enemy. I hated you. Do you know that I hated you for giving up, for being weak, for making our name a joke? Ethan's voice broke. I became a cop to prove I wasn't you, to prove I wouldn't quit when things got hard. Rex pressed against his leg, warm and solid. But you weren't weak, were you? Something happened. Something bad enough to make you close that case? Bad enough to make you stop fighting? Ethan wiped his face with shaking hands. What did they do to you? What did they... Rex suddenly moved, nose to the ground. The dog began digging at the base of the oak tree, claws throwing dirt in steady rhythm. Within minutes, he'd exposed something metallic, a lockbox, rusted but intact, buried deliberately. Ethan's heart hammered as he pulled it free. No lock, just a simple latch, corroded with age. Inside, wrapped in plastic to protect it from moisture, was a leather journal. His father's handwriting covered the first page. For Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for everything I couldn't tell you. I'm sorry I had to be the monster so you could stay safe. The journal trembled in Ethan's hands as he turned the pages. January 15th, 1980. Took the money today, $10,000, in an envelope under my windshield wiper. Margaret needs the surgery. Insurance denied us twice. The experimental treatment in Boston is our only chance. I told myself I'd take it just this once. Pay it back somehow, but I know better. There's no coming back from this. January 28th, 1985. They want me to look the other way during certain investigations, provide advance warning before raids. I'm supposed to be their eyes inside Burlington PD. God forgive me, I agreed. For Margaret, always for Margaret. February 3rd, 1980. Met him today. Calls himself Thomas Brennan, but that's not his real name. Mid-50s. Expensive suit, dead eyes. He showed me photographs. 12 children, all living in Burlington, all being watched for potential acquisition. That's what he called it, acquisition, like their property. February 10th, 1985. Brennan gave me their target list today, showed me surveillance photos. My hand started shaking when I reached the third one. Ethan, my 3-year-old son, his photo in a monsters folder. They have my boy's picture. They know where he goes to daycare, what his schedule is, what I've done, what have I done. Ethan couldn't breathe. He'd been targeted. He'd been on their list. March 1st, 1985. Margaret found the money in my desk drawer. I'd gotten sloppy, distracted. She demanded to know where it came from. I tried to lie, but she knew me too well. I told her everything. Watched my wife's face crumble as she realized what I'd become. She said she's going to the FBI tomorrow, going to turn me in. Save those children, even if it means destroying our family. I love her so much. She's the good one. She's always been the good one. March 3rd, 1980. Margaret is dead. State police say she lost control on Route 7, went through the guardrail into the ravine. But I know what this is. I told Brennan yesterday that Margaret was going to talk. I thought I could convince him we'd stay quiet. I thought I could protect her. The crash happened 6 hours later. They killed her. They killed my Margaret because I was too weak to say no in the first place. Because I took their blood money to save her life. And now she's dead anyway. March 5th, 1985. I can't eat, can't sleep, can't look at Ethan without seeing what I've done. Margaret's funeral is tomorrow. Brennan sent flowers, white lilies. The card said, "Our condolences. We trust there will be no further complications." They're warning me, keep quiet, or Ethan is next. March 10th, 1980. I've made my decision. I can't go to the FBI, they'll arrest me. And while I'm in custody, Ethan will disappear. I can't run, they'll find us. There's only one option left. I have to do this alone. I have to become what they think I am: corrupt, controllable, broken. Let them believe I'm theirs. Then I'll dismantle them from the inside. I'll save every child on that list, even if it costs me everything, even if it costs me my son's love. April 20th, 1985. Brennan trusts me now, thinks grief has made me compliant. He doesn't know I've been documenting everything, every name, every transaction, every location. I've identified the first target, Sarah Mitchell, 5 years old. They're planning to take her next week. I won't let them. I'll save her. I'll save them all. And when I'm done, I'll burn this organization to ash. The entry stopped there. The rest of the journal detailed a careful, methodical campaign. Each dress, child's rescue, each false lead Richard fed to Brennan, each piece of evidence he collected while pretending to be their man inside the police. Ethan read until the sun began to set, until his eyes burned and his chest felt like it might collapse. His father hadn't been a coward. Richard Cole had been a man who'd made one terrible choice to save his wife, lost her anyway, then spent the rest of his life trying to redeem that sin. The final entry was dated April 2000, weeks before Richard's death. 20 years ago, I saved 7 children, gave them new lives, new names, new families. One of them was almost my son. I kept Ethan safe by staying away, by letting him hate me. It was worth it. Every moment of his hatred was worth knowing he got to grow up. I'm tired now. My heart is given out. The doctors say months, maybe a year. I hope when I'm gone, someone finds the truth. I hope Ethan knows I loved him. I hope he knows his mother would be proud of the man he's becoming. I hope he forgives me. Ethan collapsed forward, forehead against the cold headstone, and wept. 20 years of hatred, of shame, of bitter resentment, all of it built on a lie he'd told himself. His father had been a hero, a flawed, broken, desperate hero who'd sacrificed his reputation, his career, his relationship with his only son to save children from monsters. Rex lay down beside him, patient and understanding in the way only dogs can be. When Ethan finally found his voice, he pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Jennifer answered on the 3rd ring. "Ethan, it's 10 at night. I'm sorry." The words rushed out. "For everything, for the drinking, for the anger, for making you live in my darkness. You were right to leave. I was drowning, and I was pulling you under with me. I'm so sorry." Silence on the line. Then, "Ethan, are you okay? You sound—" "I just found out. My father wasn't who I thought he was, wasn't who anyone thought he was." Ethan's voice cracked. "I've spent my whole life hating him for something he never did." Jennifer's breath hitched. "Oh, Ethan." I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I burned that bridge, but I needed you to know I'm sorry for all of it. I forgive you." Her voice was thick with tears. "But I can't come back yet. You need to forgive yourself first." The line went dead. Ethan sat in the gathering darkness, his father's journal pressed against his chest, and felt something shift inside him. The weight he'd carried for 20 years didn't disappear, but now he understood it differently. It wasn't shame. It was grief, and grief, unlike shame, could eventually heal. Word count 1-200. The Riverside Inn had been abandoned since 20. The old hotel sat on the banks of the Winooski River, its windows boarded, its sign faded to ghost letters. Local teenagers used it for dares. Homeless people sought shelter in its decaying rooms, but nobody paid attention to what secrets it might still hold. Ethan and Pat arrived at midnight Sunday, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Rex moved slowly beside them, still recovering but refusing to stay behind. The dog's instincts had saved them once. Ethan wasn't leaving him in the truck. "Room 237, Pat said, leading them up the creaking staircase. "Your father was specific about that number." The hallway smelled of mold and rot. Numbered plaques still hung on doors, tarnished but readable. When they reached 237, Ethan felt his pulse quicken. The key Pat had given him slid into the lock, like it had been waiting 40 years. For this moment, the room was empty except for dust and shadows. Wallpaper peeled in long strips. The carpet had been pulled up, leaving bare concrete. But Rex went straight to the closet, scratching at the back wall. Ethan pulled away the remaining boards. Behind them, bolted to the concrete, was a small safe, the kind you'd find in hotel rooms decades ago. The key from Pat's pocket fit perfectly. Inside, protected in waterproof bags, lay the remnants of his father's secret war, a USB drive, ancient by modern standards, but carefully preserved, 6 more Polaroid photographs, and a handwritten list on yellowed paper, the ink still legible after all these years. Ethan's hands shook as he read the names. Sarah Mitchell, safe. Boston, M.A. Dr. David Palmer, safe. Portland, M.E. Teacher Emma Ross, safe. NYC social worker Ethan Coley, safe. Burlington, VT Officer Lucas Grant, safe. Chicago, E.L. Architect Lily Harrison, lost, 20th, suicide. Noah Bennett, safe. Seattle, Debopo firefighter. Harrison, Ethan breathed. Lily Harrison. Pat's face had gone white. Chief Harrison's daughter. She died 10 years ago. I remember the funeral. Overdose, they said. But it was ruled suicide. She was one of them, one of the children my father saved. Ethan stared at the name, and she killed herself anyway. The weight of that loss settled like lead in his chest. His father had sacrificed everything to save 7 children, and one of them hadn't survived the aftermath. One of them had carried wounds too deep to heal. And William Harrison, the police chief who'd suspended Ethan, who'd gone pale at the sight of those photographs, had lost his daughter to whatever horrors Richard Cole had tried to prevent. Pat pulled out her laptop, connecting the ancient USB drive with an adapter. "Let's see what your father left behind." The files loaded slowly. First came video footage, grainy and time-stamped 1980. The quality was poor, clearly shot with hidden equipment. But the faces were clear enough. A man in his 50s, expensive suit, cold eyes. 4 others with him in what looked like a warehouse office. Their conversation was muffled, but Richard's hidden microphone caught enough. "The Mitchell girl goes this week? Cole says the parents have both worked nights on Thursday." Easy extraction. "And the others?" "We're watching them. The Palmer boy, the Ross girl. We'll take them gradually." Cole keeps the police looking in the wrong directions. Ethan felt sick. These men had discussed children like merchandise, planned their abductions like business transactions. The video shifted to another meeting. Same man, different location. This time the audio was crystal clear. "Cole, you understand what happens if you fail us. That boy of yours is a beautiful child. Would be a shame if something happened to him." The camera angle shifted just enough to catch Richard's face. His father's expression was stone, but his hands were clenched so tight the knuckles had gone white. "I understand, sir. Nothing will happen to compromise this operation." More files followed. Spreadsheets listing names, over 200 of them. Countries, wire transfer amounts, a customer database for a trafficking network that spanned continents. Politicians, businessmen, wealthy professionals, people who bought children the way others bought cars. Pat scrolled through the documents, her face growing harder with each page. "This is massive. This isn't just Burlington. This is international." "My father documented everything," Ethan said quietly. "Every name, every transaction. He was building a case, even while pretending to be one of them." The final folder contained audio recordings, Richard's voice, speaking to someone Ethan didn't recognize. "The evidence is safe. If anything happens to me, it gets released to every news organization and federal agency I can find. You touch my son, and your empire burns. You're bluffing, Cole. Try me." Silence. Then, "You've already lost your wife. How much more are you willing to sacrifice?" "Everything." Richard's voice was steady, cold as winter. "I will sacrifice everything to protect those children. You made a mistake when you showed me my son's photograph. You showed me what monsters you really are. And I will die before I let you have him." The recording ended. Ethan sat in the darkness of that abandoned hotel room, listening to his father's voice echo from beyond the grave, and understood for the first time the magnitude of Richard Cole's war. He'd been outnumbered, outgunned, trapped by his own mistake, but he'd fought anyway, alone, in silence, without hope of recognition or redemption. "We need to find these children," Ethan said. "The ones who survived. They need to know what Richard did for them." Pat nodded. "Sarah Mitchell, Boston. She's a doctor now, according to this list. Then that's where we start." They drove through the night, Rex sleeping fitfully in the back seat. Boston was 4 hours away, and Ethan spent every minute of that drive memorizing his father's notes, understanding the careful choreography of 7 separate rescues spread across 8 months. Richard had waited until each child was in immediate danger before intervening, made it look like luck, like coincidence, like police work. Then he'd worked with federal contacts to place each child in new families with new identities, scattering them across the country where the trafficking network couldn't find them. Sarah Mitchell lived in a brownstone near Massachusetts General Hospital. Oh, dawn was breaking as they knocked on her door. A woman answered, 45 years old, gray streaking her dark hair, eyes that held both kindness and shadows. She looked at Ethan for a long moment, then her hand went to her mouth. "You have his eyes," she whispered. "Richard's eyes." Sarah invited them inside, made coffee with hands that trembled slightly. She listened as Ethan explained everything in the Polaroids, the journal, the evidence his father had left behind. When he finished, Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she began to speak. I was 5 years old. April 1980. I remember waking up in the middle of the night because someone was in my room, a man I didn't know. He put his hand over my mouth and started carrying me toward the window. Sarah's voice was steady, but her fingers gripped the coffee mug like a lifeline. Then there was shouting, gunfire. Someone pulled me away from the man. I remember being terrified, screaming, but then I heard this voice calm, gentle. You're safe now, sweetheart. I promise you'll always be safe. That was Richard. That was your father. Tears tracked down Sarah's face. The next day, social workers came. They told me my parents had agreed to let me live with a new family in Boston. Everything happened so fast. New name, new school, new life. I didn't understand until I was older, until I saw the news reports about trafficking networks, about children who vanished. Then I understood what I'd been saved from. She stood, crossed to a shelf, and retrieved a worn teddy bear. Its fur was matted, one eye missing. Richard gave me this that night, said it would keep me safe. Years later, I found something inside. She showed them a small seam in the bear's back, carefully restitched. There was a letter. The paper was fragile with age. Richard's handwriting filled the page. To the children I saved but could never tell, you are the reason I kept going. Live beautiful lives. Be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you. That's what your freedom cost, and it was worth every penny. Ethan's vision blurred. Sarah reached across the table, took his hand. Your father was a hero, she said firmly. He saved my life. He saved all of us. And I've spent the last 40 years trying to honor that gift. What do you do? Ethan asked. Sarah smiled through her tears. I'm a pediatric oncologist. I save children. It's what he would have wanted. As they prepared to leave, Sarah pulled Ethan aside. There's something you should know. Lily Harrison, the one who died in 2010, she reached out to me a few months before, said she wanted to tell the truth about what happened, about who saved us. But she was struggling. The trauma was eating her alive. She left a letter. Do you have it? No. She told me she sent it to someone in Burlington, someone she trusted. Sarah's expression darkened. 2 weeks later, she was dead. I always wondered if it was really suicide or if someone wanted her silenced. The drive back to Vermont felt longer than the journey out. Ethan had more questions now than answers. But he also had something else, the beginning of the truth, and the names of 6 people who'd survived because Richard Cole had chosen redemption over safety. Word, count 1-300 Ethan, returned to Burlington Monday afternoon with evidence that could destroy lives and end careers. The USB drive, the journal, Sarah's testimony, all of it pointed to a conspiracy that had festered for 40 years. But first, he needed answers from the one man who'd tried to bury the truth. William Harrison's office door was closed when Ethan arrived at the station. He walked past the front desk without stopping, ignoring the startled receptionist's protests. Rex limped beside him. Still weak but determined, Ethan didn't knock. He pushed open the door to find Harrison standing at his window, shoulders rigid, hands clasped behind his back like a man awaiting execution. I told you to leave it alone, Harrison said without turning. Lily Harrison? Ethan set the USB drive on the desk. Your daughter. She was one of the 7 children my father saved. Harrison's shoulders sagged. For a moment, he looked every one of his 58 years, and then some. When he finally turned, his face was haggard, eyes red-rimmed. She was 6 years old. Harrison said quietly, "Beautiful, smart, so damn smart." He sank into his chair like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. April 1985. I came home from a double shift and found her room empty, window open. I thought I'd lost her. But Richard found her. Richard saved her. Harrison's voice cracked. Brought her back 12 hours later through some federal program I didn't understand and wasn't allowed to question. New identity, new family in Portland. I only got to see her twice a year under supervised conditions. But she was alive. She was safe. Ethan remained standing, arms crossed. You were there in 1985. You knew about the trafficking ring. The silence that followed was answer enough. I was 28 years old. Harrison finally said, rookie detective, drowning in student loans, my wife pregnant with our second child. When they approached me with that first envelope, $10,000 cash, I told myself it was just once, just to get ahead of the bills. His laugh was bitter. But it's never just once, is it? What did they make you do? Look the other way, file certain reports late, lose evidence occasionally, small things at first. Then they showed me the photographs. 12 children they were watching, and there was Lily, my baby girl. They said as long as I cooperated, she'd never be on the actual target list. She'd be safe. Ethan felt rage building in his chest. So you helped them? I told myself I was protecting my daughter. That's what monsters tell themselves, isn't it? That we're protecting someone. Harrison's hands trembled as he opened his desk drawer, pulled out a flask he didn't drink, just stared at it. Then Richard found out, confronted me, said he had a plan to save all of them, but I had to trust him, had to keep quiet while he worked. And did you? For a while, Richard saved Lily, saved all 7. But the cost? Harrison's voice broke. He became the villain so they could be heroes. Let everyone think he was corrupt, cowardly, and I let him. I stayed quiet, built my career on his sacrifice while he rotted in obscurity. Lily killed herself in 2010. She didn't kill herself. Harrison's eyes blazed suddenly. She was murdered, made to look like an overdose. But I knew. She'd been clean for 3 years. She called me 2 weeks before she died. Said she was going to expose everything. Tell the truth about what happened in 1980, about who really saved her. Ethan leaned forward. Who killed her? The same people who've been running this network for 40 years. The same people who killed your mother, who poisoned your father. Harrison met Ethan's gaze. Thomas Brennan wasn't his real name. His real name is Edward Whitmore. The room tilted. Senator Whitmore, Vermont senior senator, 75 years old, 30 years in the Senate, decorated veteran, a pillar of the community. Harrison's smile was ghastly, and the architect of one of the largest human trafficking operations on the East Coast. Your father tried to expose him in 2009, I've had all the evidence. Was going to the FB. 2 days later, Richard had a heart attack, except it wasn't a heart attack, was it? Ethan's throat constricted. You have proof. I have suspicions. I have timing. I have the fact that 3 other people who tried to investigate Whitmore over the years also died of natural causes or accidents. Harrison stood abruptly. I've been too afraid to act for 20 years, Too afraid I'd end up like Richard, like Lily. But I can't. I won't. He didn't finish. His hand went to his chest, face contorting. Harrison. Ethan moved toward him. The Rex. Harrison gasped. The poison, that was me. God forgive me. I was trying to scare you off, trying to save you like I couldn't save Lily. But I used the wrong. I didn't mean to. The confession died as Harrison collapsed. Ethan caught him, lowered him to the floor, shouted for help. But even as officers rushed in, as paramedics arrived minutes later, he knew. Harrison's face had gone gray, lips blue. The same symptoms Rex had shown, strychnine poisoning. By the time they loaded Harrison into the ambulance, Ethan understood. This wasn't a heart attack. This was an execution. Pat found him in the parking lot 20 minutes later, face ashen. Ethan, we need to go. Now. What? Your truck just exploded. The blast had taken out 3 vehicles. Black smoke billowed across the parking lot. Officers swarmed the scene, securing the perimeter, and Ethan understood with cold certainty that the explosion had been timed for when he should have been there. Someone had tried to kill him. There. Pat grabbed his arm, pointing to the roof of the building across the street. Muzzle flash. The window beside Ethan's head shattered. Rex barked a warning as a second shot punched through the car door where Ethan had been standing a heartbeat before. Move! Pat shoved him behind a concrete barrier as more shots rang out. Officers scattered, drawing weapons, shouting into radios, but in the chaos, Ethan saw something that made his blood freeze. 3 of the uniformed officers weren't taking cover. They were advancing, weapons drawn, aimed at him. They're compromised, Pat hissed. How many people does Whitmore own? She returned fire, providing cover as Ethan grabbed Rex and ran. They made it to Pat's unmarked sedan, bullets sparking off the pavement behind them. Pat drove like she was racing death itself, tires screaming as she carved through the traffic. Harrison's dead, she said. I just got the call, found in his office with his service weapon in his hand. They're calling it suicide. It wasn't suicide. I know, but that's the official story. And there's more. Pat's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. There's a warrant out for your arrest. Murder of Police Chief William Harrison. Bombing of the police station. Attempted murder of fellow officers. Ethan stared at her. That's insane. There's security footage, edited, obviously. But it shows you arguing with Harrison. Shows you leaving his office minutes before he died. Shows your truck in the parking lot before the explosion. Pat's voice was tight. They've frozen your bank accounts. Issued a shoot-on-sight order if you resist arrest. You're wanted for cop killing. Ethan, every officer in 6 states is looking for you. The magnitude of it crashed over him. In less than an hour, he'd gone from suspended officer to fugitive. Whitmore had orchestrated this perfectly. Kill Harris and frame Ethan. Eliminate the only 2 people who knew the truth. We can't go to the FBI, Pat said. We don't know who we can trust. Whitmore has been building his network for 40 years. He could have people anywhere. Then where do we go? My family has a hunting cabin in the Northeast Kingdom, off the grid. We can hide there, figure out our next move. They drove north into Vermont's wilderness, leaving behind the wreckage of Ethan's life. His career was destroyed. His name was mud. The evidence he'd gathered might never see daylight if Whitmore controlled the investigation. Rex lay in the back seat, panting softly. The dog had been poisoned, shot at, and forced to run. But those amber eyes still held trust, still believed Ethan would make this right. "I'm sorry, boy," Ethan whispered. "I got you into this mess." Rex licked his hand. No blame, just loyalty. They reached the cabin after dark. Pat swept the interior, checking for signs of intrusion while Ethan collapsed into a chair. Every muscle ached. His shoulder throbbed where he'd been grazed by a bullet. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the crushing weight of failure. His father had fought this battle for 20 years and died for it. Now Ethan was following the same path, alone, hunted, with nothing but a dog and a detective who was risking everything to help him. Pat's phone buzzed. She checked it, then showed Ethan the screen. News alerts flooding in, his photo everywhere. The story spreading like wildfire. Disgraced officer kills police chief. Bombs station, oats and fleas. "I have nothing," Ethan said quietly. "No job, no home, no credibility. How am I supposed to fight a United States senator with nothing?" Pat sat across from him, her expression fierce. "Your father fought with less. He fought with shame and isolation and everyone thinking he was a coward, but he saved 7 lives anyway. One of them still died. 6 of them lived. 6 people are walking around today with families and careers and futures because Richard Cole refused to quit." She leaned forward. "Sarah Mitchell saves children for a living. David Palmer teaches high school in Portland. Emma Ross is a social worker in New York. Lucas Grant designs sustainable housing in Chicago. Noah Bennett is a firefighter in Seattle. Your father's legacy isn't failure, Ethan. It's 6 people who pay his sacrifice forward every single day." Ethan closed his eyes. 6 survivors. 6 witnesses. 6 people who could corroborate what Richard had done. "We find them," he said. "All of them. We bring them together, though we make sure their stories can't be ignored." "That means leaving Vermont, crossing state lines while wanted for murder." "Then that's what we do." Ethan looked at Rex, at Pat, at the life he'd already lost. "My father died alone, disgraced, with everyone thinking he was a failure. I won't let that stand, even if it costs me everything." Pat nodded slowly. "Then we start with Noah Bennett. Seattle is as far from Whitmore's reach as we can get. 3,000 miles. Every cop between here and there looking for us. Your father once said the truth always comes to light." Pat's smile was grim. "Time to prove him right. Word, count 1, 100. They abandoned Pat's car in Albany, switching to a beat-up Honda Civic purchased cash from a salvage dealer who didn't ask questions. Ethan's face was on every news channel. The manhunt had gone national. FBI involvement, 24-hour coverage. The narrative was already set. Disturbed officer with family history of disgrace finally snaps. Pat drove the first shift, while Ethan huddled in the back seat with Rex, watching his life disintegrate in real time on her phone. His bank accounts weren't just frozen, they'd been seized. His house was surrounded by news vans. Jennifer had been questioned for 6 hours. The university where she taught had put her on leave. pending investigation into her relationship with the suspect. "They came to my apartment," she told a reporter, voice shaking, asked if I was hiding him, searched everything. I haven't seen Ethan in months. We're divorced, but they don't care. They've made me guilty by association." Ethan turned off the phone before he could hear more. Everything he touched turned to ash. Everyone who'd ever cared about him was being punished for that connection. "We should stop," he told Pat as they crossed into Ohio. "You should leave me here. This is destroying your life, too." "Not a chance." Pat's eyes never left the road. "I made a promise to your father 20 years ago. I'm keeping it." The journey to Seattle took 4 days. 4 days of sleeping in the car, eating gas station food, avoiding every security camera and highway patrol checkpoint they could identify. Rex grew weaker each day, his injuries and stress taking their toll. But the dog never complained, never wavered in his trust. They talked during the long hours. Pat shared stories Ethan had never heard, moments when Richard had been kind, brilliant, deeply human despite the monster everyone believed him to be. "He bought Christmas presents for every kid in the station," Pat said somewhere in Montana. "Anonymous gifts, never took credit. I caught him once, wrapping a bike for the janitor's son. He made me promise not to tell. Said some things were better done in silence." Ethan understood now. His father had learned that heroism without recognition was the truest kind, that sometimes the greatest good required the greatest sacrifice of pride. They reached Seattle on Thursday morning, exhausted and running on fumes both literal and metaphorical. Noah Bennett lived in a craftsman house near the fire station where he worked. 45 years old, broad-shouldered, with the kind of steady presence that came from running into burning buildings while others ran out. Noah answered the door in his Seattle Fire Department T-shirt, took one look at Ethan's face, and said, "I've been waiting for you." Inside, Noah poured coffee with the hands scarred from years of rescue work. "Saw you on the news. Knew it was lies. Anyone who'd go this far to protect Richard Cole's legacy isn't a murderer." "You don't know me," Ethan said quietly. "I know your father. That's enough." Noah disappeared into his bedroom, returned carrying a metal lockbox. "Richard gave this to my adoptive parents in 1980. Told them if his son ever came looking to give him this. My parents died 5 years ago. I've been holding on to it ever since." The box was heavy, substantial. Inside were treasures more valuable than gold VHS tapes. Original recordings with timestamps and metadata that couldn't be faked. Contracts bearing Edward Whitmore's signature. Photographs, not Polaroids, but high-quality prints showing Whitmore with children, with known traffickers, at locations that could be verified, and a testament. Richard's final testimony, handwritten and notarized, detailing every name, every crime, every piece of evidence he'd gathered over 20 years. He was building a case that couldn't be ignored, Noah said. Documentation so thorough, so comprehensive, that even Whitmore's connections couldn't bury it. Ethan's hands trembled, holding his father's words. Why didn't he ever use this? He tried in 2005, was scheduled to meet with the U.S. Attorney in Boston. Heart attack 2 days before the meeting. Noah's expression was grim. "I don't believe in coincidences. Neither do I." Ethan looked at Pat. "My father was murdered. Harrison was murdered. Lily Harrison was murdered. Everyone who gets close to the truth ends up dead. Then we make sure the truth survives us," Pat said firmly. Noah leaned forward. "I need to tell you something. About the night Richard saved me, I was 6 years old, locked in a shipping container at the docks. 3 other children with me. We were being loaded onto a freighter bound for Europe." His voice was steady, but his eyes held decades of memory. "Richard came through that door like an avenging angel. Took a bullet to the shoulder getting us out, carried me while bleeding, told me I was safe now, that I was going to grow up strong, that I was going to save people." Noah gestured to his fire department shirt. "I became a firefighter because of what he said that night. Spent 30 years running into danger to pull people out. Saved maybe 100 lives in my career. Every single one of them exists because Richard Cole saved me first." Ethan's vision blurred. The mathematics of his father's sacrifice were staggering. 7 children saved, each going on to save others. Sarah healing sick children, Noah rescuing families, David teaching hundreds of students, Emma protecting vulnerable families as a social worker. The ripples of Richard Cole's choice spreading out across decades, touching thousands of lives. "We have to end this," Ethan said. "Not just for my father, us, for everyone Whitmore has hurt, everyone he might still hurt." Pat pulled out her laptop, began researching. "Whitmore has a public hearing in Washington, D.C. next Wednesday. Senate Appropriations Committee, cameras, press, full transparency, 5 days from now." Ethan felt the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. "We could release this evidence online, send it to every news outlet we can find. They'd bury it," Noah said. "Claim it's fake, deep-faked, fabricated by a wanted fugitive. Whitmore has spent 40 years building credibility. You need something he can't spin away." "Public confrontation," Pat said slowly. "Walk into that hearing. Present the evidence in front of cameras. Survivors testifying live, evidence that can be verified in real time. I'll be arrested the moment I step foot in that building," Ethan said. "Probably shot on sight. Not if you're live streaming on every platform simultaneously," Noah countered. "Not if Sarah and David and Emma and Lucas are all there with you. Not if the whole world is watching." It was insane. Suicidal. Walking into the lion's den with nothing but truth as a weapon. But Ethan thought of his father, who'd fought this battle alone for 20 years, who'd lost everything and kept fighting anyway. "We'll need a dead man switch," Ethan said, "if something happens to me. The evidence still goes public." Pat nodded. "I'll set it up. Encrypted emails to 50 major news organizations. Timed release, unless you input a code every 6 hours." They spent the next day preparing, scanning documents, converting VHS tapes to digital, building a case that could withstand any scrutiny. Ethan called the other survivors, David in Portland, Emma in New York, Lucas in Chicago. One by one, they agreed to come, to stand with him, to honor the man who'd saved them. As Tuesday night fell, Ethan sat with the Rex on Noah's back porch. The dog was deteriorating. The journey had been too much. He needed rest, medical care, peace. "You can't come with me this time, boy," Ethan said, softly, stroking Rex's graying muzzle. "Noah will take care of you. Get you healthy again." His tail thumped weakly. Those amber eyes held understanding. "You saved me. You know that night you wouldn't let me pull the trigger. Every day after, you gave me a reason to keep going. Ethan's voice cracked. "If I don't make it back." Rex licked his hand, a gesture that said, "You will. Oh, we will." Noah stood in the doorway. "My parents named me Noah because it means rest and peace. Richard gave me that gift. Now I'm giving it to you. Win or lose, you'll always have a home here. You and Rex both." They left for Washington, D.C. at dawn, Pat driving, Ethan in the passenger seat with his father's testament in his lap. Behind them, 6 survivors converged from different corners of the country, 6 lives Richard Cole had saved, 6 witnesses who could no longer stay silent. Ethan watched Seattle disappear in the rearview mirror, Rex standing in Noah's driveway, and felt something shift inside him. He'd spent his whole life running from his father's shadow. Now he was running toward it, embracing it, becoming it. "Whatever happens," he told Pat, "thank you for believing when no one else did. Your father once told me that truth doesn't need belief, it just needs witnesses." Pat's smile was fierce. "We're his witnesses now. Time to make them listen." The highway stretched ahead, 2,800 miles to justice or death. Ethan didn't know which awaited him in Washington, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would not let his father die a coward's death in history, even if redemption cost him everything. Word count, 350. They drove through the night, a caravan of grief and determination. Sarah Mitchell flew in from Boston. David Palmer drove down from Portland. Emma Ross took the train from New York. Lucas Grant flew from Chicago. By Wednesday morning, all 6 survivors stood together for the first time in 40 years outside the Hart Senate office building in Washington, D.C. The police presence was massive, every entrance monitored. Ethan's face on wanted posters held by officers at every checkpoint. But the hearing was public. Cameras everywhere. Social media already buzzing with speculation about why a fugitive cop would risk everything to attend a Senate appropriations hearing. Pat had done her work well. 10 different live streams were queued, ready to broadcast simultaneously across every major platform. The dead man's switch was set encrypted files, waiting to deploy to 50 news organizations if Ethan didn't input the code every 6 hours. "Once we walk through those doors, there's no going back," Pat said. "They'll arrest you? Maybe all of us." Ethan looked at the 6 people standing with him. Sarah, in her white doctor's coat, stethoscope around her neck, a deliberate choice to show the world who she'd become. David, wearing his Portland High School faculty badge. Emma, with her social services credentials. Lucas in his architect's blazer. Noah in his firefighter dress uniform, medals gleaming. "My father died alone," Ethan said quietly. "Disgraced, forgotten. I won't let that be his legacy." Sarah stepped forward. Her expression was strange, sad, and proud, and something else Ethan couldn't quite identify. "Ethan, before we go in, there's something I need to tell you." The others shifted uncomfortably, like they'd known this moment was coming. "I'm not just a doctor," Sarah said carefully. "I'm FB Special Agent Sarah Mitchell, Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force." The world tilted. Ethan stared at her, unable to process the words. "After Richard saved me in 1985, the FBI placed me in witness protection. New identity, new family. But when I turned 18, I came back, volunteered to go undercover, spent the last 27 years tracking the networks Richard tried to destroy. You've been FBI this whole time. Ethan's voice was hollow. I've also been watching you, protecting you. Richard's last request before he died was that I keep his son safe, that I make sure you survived long enough to finish what he started. Ethan felt like he'd been struck. You've been following me for 20 years, not following, protecting. Whitmore has tried to have you killed 4 times since you became a cop. 4 times his people got close. 4 times something went wrong for them. Sarah's eyes were fierce. That wasn't luck, Ethan. That was me. The truck explosion. I made sure the bomb malfunctioned. It was supposed to be twice as powerful. Would have taken out half the parking lot. Sarah pulled out her FBI credentials. I have been building a case against Whitmore for 2 decades, but he's protected. Too many friends in high places. Too much evidence that mysteriously disappears. Pat had gone very still. How high does this go? FBI Assistant Director Marcus Webb is the only person I trust completely. Everyone else. Sarah shook her head. Whitmore has people everywhere. That's why I couldn't come forward until now. Until you found Richard's evidence. Until we had documentation even Whitmore couldn't make disappear. Ethan's mind reeled. Every assumption, every belief about the last few weeks was reshuffling. My father asked you to protect me. He asked me to protect you and to tell you the truth when the time came. Sarah's voice softened. He didn't die of a heart attack, Ethan. He was murdered. The words landed like physical blows. I have proof. Sarah pulled out a tablet, showed him medical records. I've been investigating his death for 19 years. Your father had a doctor's appointment the week before he died. Full cardiac workup. His heart was fine, healthy, no signs of disease. She swiped to another document, but the autopsy showed massive cardiac arrest. I got access to the original blood samples 2 years ago. Tested them independently. Digitalis poisoning. The same drug that killed Harrison. The same drug found in Rex's system. Ethan couldn't breathe. His father murdered, not by age or illness, but by the same monsters he'd been fighting. Richard had scheduled a meeting with the U.S. Attorney in Boston. Sarah continued, April 15th, 2005. He was going to present everything, every name, every crime, every piece of evidence he'd gathered 48 hours before that meeting. He had a heart attack at a home. Alone. By the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. Who? Ethan's voice was raw. Who killed him? The same man who killed your mother. Who killed Lily Harrison? Who tried to kill you? Sarah's expression was granite. Edward Whitmore, and I'm going to help you prove it. She showed them more files. FBI surveillance, phone records, financial transactions. A web of corruption so vast it was almost incomprehensible. Whitmore had been careful, insulated, protected by layers of legitimate business and political connections. But Sarah had spent 20 years pulling those threads. Why now? Pat asked. Why not before? Because Whitmore is about to retire. 3 months from now. He leaves the Senate, returns to private life. Once he's out of the public eye, we'll never touch him. This hearing is our last chance. Lucas spoke up, his voice tight. You've been using us, using Ethan. I've been protecting you, Sarah shot back. All of you, Dos. You think it's coincidence that you've all lived safe, successful lives for 40 years. that none of you were ever found by the remnants of that trafficking network. She gestured to the building behind them. I've spent my entire adult life making sure Richard's sacrifice meant something. Ethan felt something breaking loose inside him. The anger, the grief, the decades of misunderstanding. His father hadn't just saved 7 children. He'd set in motion a plan that outlived him, had trusted Sarah to continue the fight he could no longer wage. "There's more," Sarah said quietly. "The hearing today. Whitmore knows we're coming." "What?" "I leaked it, made sure he found out, because I need him scared, need him desperate enough to make a mistake." She pulled up security schematics on her tablet. "He's hired 20 private security contractors, former special forces. They're inside the building right now." Pat swore. "It's a trap. Of course it's a trap, but it's also our only shot." Sarah looked at each of them. "The moment Ethan walks through those doors, Whitmore's people will try to kill him, make it look like a terrorist attack, a disturbed fugitive attacking Congress." "Then I don't go in," Ethan said. "Then Whitmore wins, retires peacefully, lives out his days untouched, and Richard's sacrifice means nothing." Sarah's voice was steel. "But if you go in, if we live stream everything, if the whole world watches what happens, Whitmore can't hide, can't spin it. The truth comes out, even if we die telling it." "You're asking him to walk into a kill box," Pat said flatly. "I'm asking him to finish what his father started." Sarah turned to Ethan. "Richard knew they'd probably kill him. He did it anyway. He chose the truth over his own life. Now I'm asking if you have that same courage." Ethan thought of Rex, recovering in Seattle, thought of Jennifer, whose life he'd already destroyed, thought of his father, dying alone, poisoned, his name dragged through mud. "I'm going in," he said. The others nodded, one by one. They formed a line. 6 survivors, 1 son, 1 detective who'd kept faith for 20 years, an FB agent who'd spent her life honoring a promise to a dead man. "We live stream everything," Sarah said, distributing small cameras to each of them, multiple angles, multiple platforms. "They can't kill all of us before the truth gets out." Pat checked her weapon. FBI Assistant Director Webb, waiting inside with a team we can trust. But he can't move until we have Whitmore on record, until we force him to react. Sarah's expression was grim. "We need him to confess or attack. Either way, we need him to reveal himself." They walked toward the entrance. Security saw Ethan immediately. Hands went to weapons, radios crackled, but Sarah flashed her FBI credentials, and confusion rippled through the ranks. "Special Agent Mitchell, FBI. These people are under my protection. We're here to testify at the appropriations hearing. That man is wanted for murder. That man is a key witness in a federal investigation. Stand down." The confusion bought them enough time. They pushed through into the Hart Building, cameras following, security scrambling to respond. News crews caught wind of something happening. People pulled out phones. Within minutes, the live streams went active. 2 million viewers in the first 60 seconds. They entered the Senate committee room. Senator Edward Whitmore sat at the elevated panel, silver-haired and distinguished, 75 years of practiced authority in every line of his face. When he saw Ethan, something flickered across his expression: surprise, then calculation, then cold fury. "Security!" Whitmore's voice carried authority honed over 3 decades. "That man is a fugitive. Remove him immediately." "Senator Whitmore," Sarah's voice rang out clear. "Special Agent Sarah Mitchell, FBI. We're here to present evidence of crimes committed by you and your associates over the last 40 years. The room exploded into chaos. Senators shouting, security advancing, cameras swiveling. And in the center of it all, Ethan Cole stood with his father's testament in his hands and 6 survivors at his back. "My name is Ethan Cole," he said into the camera, voice steady. Despite his racing heart, "my father was Richard Cole for 20 years. Everyone believed he was a coward who gave up on 7 missing children. Today, I am here to tell you the truth." He held up the first photograph, Richard with a young girl, Sarah, carrying her from a darkened warehouse. "These are the children my father saved. These are the lives he gave everything to protect." Ethan's voice grew stronger. "And this is the man who tried to destroy them." He pointed at Whitmore. The senator's face had gone pale. His hand moved beneath the desk, a signal. Sarah saw it. "Gun. He's armed. Everything happened at once." Whitmore pulled out a small pistol from beneath the podium. Security contractors positioned throughout the room moved toward Ethan. FBI agent Sarah had positioned burst from side doors, and 5 million people watched it unfold live. Broadcast across every social media platform, impossible to suppress or deny. Whitmore aimed at Ethan. His hand was steady. His eyes were dead. "You're just like your father," Whitmore said, voice clear in the sudden silence. "Too stubborn to know when to quit. It got him killed. Now it's your turn." The microphones caught every word. The cameras captured every detail. Whitmore's confession, his raised weapon, his cold admission of murder. Sarah's shot took Whitmore in the shoulder before he could fire. The senator's gun clattered to the floor. Chaos erupted. FBI swarming, security surrendering, Whitmore screaming about his rights, while blood spread across his expensive suit. Ethan stood motionless in the center of the storm, his father's testament clutched against his chest, and watched 40 years of secrets finally, irrevocably, come to light. Word count 1 of 400. The hearing room remained frozen for 3 heartbeats after Sarah's shot. Then the world exploded into motion. FBI agents swarmed Whitmore, wrestling him to the ground despite his wounded shoulder. His private security contractors dropped weapons, hands raised. Realizing they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Capitol Police secured the perimeter, while paramedics rushed to treat the senator, who moments ago had attempted murder in front of millions of witnesses. Assistant Director Marcus Webb strode into the room, 50 agents behind him, badges displayed. "Edward Whitmore, you're under arrest for human trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, murder in the first degree, attempted murder, and corruption of public officials." Whitmore's composure cracked. Blood soaking through his suit, hands being cuffed behind his back, he screamed into the cameras, still broadcasting everything. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I have friends at the highest levels. This will be buried by tomorrow." "Sir," Webb said calmly, 50 million people just watched you attempt to murder a witness on live television. There is no burying this." The number was real. Ethan could see it on the screens throughout the room, 50 million viewers across 10 platforms. The number climbing by the second, trending worldwide. justice for Richard Cole. Whitmore exposed. 7 children. The internet had exploded. Sarah stood beside Ethan, weapon still drawn but lowered. "It's over," she said quietly. 40 years? It's finally over. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of depositions, interviews, and revelations that shook the nation to its foundation. The evidence Richard had spent 20 years compiling proved devastating. Webb's FBI team correlated it with their own investigations, and the house of cards Whitmore had built collapsed spectacularly. 15 senators and congressional representatives were arrested within 48 hours. Their names found in Richard's customer database. 23 corporate executives, 41 foreign nationals. The trafficking network Richard had tried to destroy in 1980 was finally, comprehensively, dismantled. The president addressed the nation on Friday evening. "We have uncovered one of the most extensive criminal conspiracies in American history, a conspiracy that operated for over 40 years under the protection of those we trusted to serve the public good. This ends now. Every person involved will face justice. Every victim will be heard." Ethan watched from a hotel room in Washington. Charges against him dropped, warrants vacated, his name cleared. Pat sat beside him, her own badge and weapon restored, a formal apology from the Burlington Police Department already in her email. "They're calling your father a hero," Pat said, scrolling through news coverage. "National hero. They're talking about renaming the Burlington Police headquarters after him." Ethan couldn't quite process it. 48 hours ago, he'd been a fugitive, wanted for murder. Now the same media that had destroyed him was breathlessly reporting on Richard Cole's sacrifice, his courage, his decades-long fight against impossible odds. The knock on the door made them both tense, hands moving instinctively toward weapons that were no longer necessary. But it was only exhaustion written into every line of her face. "It's done," she said, collapsing into a chair. "Whitmore is formally charged with 17 counts of murder, including Margaret Cole, Richard Cole, and Lily Harrison. The evidence is overwhelming." "Will he go to trial?" Ethan asked. "His lawyers are already talking plea bargain, life in prison without parole to avoid death penalty." Sarah's smile was grim. "Either way, he dies in a cage." The satisfaction Ethan expected didn't come. Instead, he felt only hollow weariness. Justice served, but at what cost? His mother dead, his father dead, Lily Harrison dead. 20 years of his own life spent hating a man who deserved only love. "I need to go home," he said abruptly. "I need to see Rex." Sarah nodded, understanding. "Noah says Rex has been asking for you. Won't eat much. Just lies by the door waiting." The flight to Seattle took 6 hours. Ethan spent all of them staring out the window, watching America slide by below, thinking about his father crossing this same distance 40 years ago, with 7 children's lives in his hands. Noah was waiting at the airport. He didn't say anything, just pulled Ethan into a fierce hug. "He's been waiting for you." Rex lay on Noah's living room floor, grayer than Ethan remembered, thinner, but those amber eyes still bright with intelligence and love. When the German shepherd saw Ethan, his tail began to wag weakly. Ethan dropped to his knees. Rex crawled forward, laid his head in Ethan's lap, and made a sound that was half whimper, half sigh of relief. "I'm sorry, boy. I'm so sorry I left you." Ethan buried his face in Rex's fur. "You saved me. You saved all of us. If you hadn't found that painting, if you hadn't kept barking, none of this would have happened." Rex licked his face. Forgiveness, loyalty, love, everything dogs give freely that humans struggle to offer. "The vet says he'll recover," Noah said quietly. "But he needs rest, months of it. No more running, no more stress." "Then he gets rest." Ethan stroked Rex's ears. "He's earned it. God knows he's earned it." They stayed in Seattle for a week. Ethan needed the distance from cameras, from reporters, from the endless requests for interviews and book deals and movie rights. Noah's house provided sanctuary. And slowly, Rex's strength returned. The dog could walk again without limping, could eat without vomiting, could sleep without nightmares that made him whimper and thrash. On the 7th day, Ethan received a call from an unfamiliar number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Ethan," Jennifer's voice, tentative, careful. "I saw the news, all of it. I'm so sorry for everything, for not believing in you, for leaving when you needed—" "You had every right to leave," Ethan said softly. "I was drowning. I was pulling you under." "You were fighting a war you didn't even know you were in." Jennifer's voice broke. "Your father's war. I understand now. I understand everything." Silence stretched between them, filled with history and hurt and something that might still be love. "I'm in Seattle," Ethan said. "I don't know when I'm coming back to Vermont. I don't know if I'm coming back. Can I come there? Can I see you?" Ethan looked at Rex, at Noah, watching from the kitchen, at the life he'd lost and the life he might still build. "Yes, I'd like that." She arrived 2 days later. They sat on Noah's back porch while Rex dozed in the afternoon sun. And they talked, really talked for the first time in years. About Richard, about the case, about the grief and anger and fear that had poisoned their marriage. "I'm pregnant," Jennifer said finally. 3 months. I found out the week after the divorce was finalized." Ethan's world stopped. "What?" "I didn't know how to tell you. You were falling apart. I was falling apart. I thought—" She took his hand. "I thought it would be cruel to tell you about a child you'd never get to raise. But now I know who you really are, who your father really was." Jennifer's eyes were wet. "I want our child to know their grandfather was a hero. I want them to grow up with your strength, your courage, your refusal to quit even when everything is lost." Ethan pulled her close, felt her shake against him, and for the first time in months, maybe years, felt something like hope take root in his chest. Pat called on Saturday with news from Vermont. "The governor wants to give you a commendation. Full reinstatement, promotion to detective, public apology. You name it, they'll do it." "I don't want any of it," Ethan said. Silence. Then, "What do you want?" "I want to do what my father should have been able to do. I want to fight for the people who can't fight for themselves." He looked at Rex, at Jennifer, sitting beside him. "Sarah offered me a position with the FBI, Human Trafficking Task Force, following in my father's footsteps for real this time. You'd be good at it," Pat said quietly. Your father would be proud. What about you? Burlington offered me chief of police, Harrison's old position. Pat laughed, bitter and sad. Turns out cleaning up 40 years of corruption creates job openings. 3 weeks after the hearing, they gathered in Burlington for Richard Cole's memorial. Not the small, shameful funeral from 2005, but a proper honoring. Thousands attended. Police from 6 states, FB agents, survivors of trafficking. And in the front row, Ethan, Jennifer, Pat, and 6 people whose lives proved that one man's sacrifice could change the world. Sarah spoke first. Richard Cole saved me when I was 5 years old. He taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right, even when you're terrified, even when it costs you everything. David Palmer stood next. I teach high school history every year. I tell my students about a man they've never heard of who saved my life and asked for nothing in return. Now, finally, the whole world knows his name. Emma Ross. Tears streaming. I became a social worker because Richard showed me that one person can make a difference, that standing up for children matters, that love is stronger than fear. Lucas Grant, voice steady. I design affordable housing, safe homes for families. It's my way of honoring the man who gave me a safe home when I had none. Noah Bennett, in full dress uniform. I run into burning buildings to save people. It's dangerous work. But Richard Cole taught me that some things are worth the risk. Some people are worth saving, always. And finally, Lily Harrison's mother, who'd flown in from Portland, frail and elderly but fierce with grief. My daughter died because the trauma was too much to bear. But she lived 25 years she wouldn't have had without Richard Cole. 25 years of birthday cakes and Christmas mornings and watching sunsets. That's his gift to us. Time, life, hope. Ethan couldn't speak. When his turn came, he simply laid a photograph on the memorial, Richard holding 3-year-old Ethan, both of them laughing before the darkness came. The statue was unveiled a month later in what was now Richard Cole Memorial Park. Bronze, 10 feet tall, showing a man kneeling beside a child, one hand on the child's shoulder, the other reaching down to a German shepherd at his side. The inscription read, Richard Cole, 1950-2009, father, officer, guardian. He saved 7 lives and asked only that they be lived well. Ethan stood before it with Jennifer, her hand in his, her stomach beginning to show. Rex sat beside them, older now, grayer, but still strong, still loyal. We're naming her Margaret, Jennifer said softly, after your mother, if that's okay. It's perfect. Ethan touched the bronze hand on the child's shoulder. Thank you, Dad, for everything, for never giving up, for teaching me that some things are worth dying for. But more importantly, he looked at Jennifer, at the life growing inside her, for teaching me what's worth living for. Children played in the park around them. Families picnicked on the grass. Life, ordinary and beautiful and safe, because one man had chosen truth over comfort, sacrifice over tilliance, love and over fear. Rex's tail thumped against the ground. The dog looked up at Ethan with those wise amber eyes that had seen him through the darkest nights. And Ethan could swear he saw approval there, pride, peace. You did good, boy, Ethan whispered. We did good. Somewhere, Ethan believed his father was watching, finally vindicated, finally honored, finally free. And somewhere, 7 children who'd grown into heroes themselves were living the beautiful lives Richard Cole had died to give them. It was enough. It was everything. Word. Count 200. Richard Cole's story reminds us that it's never too late for the truth to surface, and never too late to understand those we've lost. How many of us have carried anger toward a parent, only to discover years later the sacrifices they made in silence? The weight of misunderstanding can crush a lifetime. But redemption, even after death, can heal wounds we thought permanent. This story speaks to the power of loyalty, both human and animal. Rex didn't give up on Ethan, just as Richard never gave up on those 7 children. Sometimes our greatest protectors work in silence. Whether they're fathers who bear shame to keep us safe, or faithful companions who refuse to let us walk into darkness alone. The love between Ethan and Rex mirrors the love Richard had for his son, unconditional, sacrificial, honoring even when unrecognized. We all leave legacies. The question is whether we have the courage to fight for what's right, even when no one's watching. Richard Cole chose truth over reputation, love over comfort, and his sacrifice rippled through generations. Have you ever discovered something about a loved one after they were gone that changed how you saw them? What would you sacrifice to protect someone you love? Share your thoughts below. Your story matters. We're listening.